Doop, doop, doop. Greetings, fellow travelers. Welcome on in. This is the 159th level of the RPG Cave. I'm one of your hosts, the level 199 human Dark Lord, Ryan Turford, and I am joined, as always, by the level 199 elf battle alchemist, Dr. Garret Bland. How's it going, Garret?
I'm doing good, man, on this wonderful Tuesday evening. Tuesday.
Yes, we're on
as the people would say.
We're on a different night tonight. Apologies to everyone in the audience.
Different day.
We had to switch because I had no voice on Saturday, so it made it a little hard to do the visit.
Yeah, it would be pretty one-sided on that recording, for sure.
I was going to say, Garret, you would have done all the talking.
I would be coughing and yakking, and you would just barely hear your voice. That's how it would go.
Dude, it was bad,
basically.
Man. It was really bad. Like, I basically could make out 2 sentences before I would lose my voice for like 20 or 30 minutes. Like, it was ridiculous.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, allergies will happen, or sickness in general.
I just had a cold, but at least I'm feeling better now, as you can tell. You know, I'm feeling energetic, feeling good. You know, I'm feeling good tonight. Shout out to Yarden. Hello.
Hi guys. Hi Yarden.
Welcome on in.
Hi.
Of course, this is the sick cast, apparently, where we talk about illnesses all the time, except for we talk about RPGs.
Heck yeah.
Yes, Yarden actually points out Garrett's mic is super loud, believe it or not.
Oh.
This is actually where Garret, the way Garret normally talks when it's not ASMR Garret. That's
true.
On the
this
weekends.
Is normal talking, by the way. Hold on, I'm gonna stand away a little bit of the mic. There we go. Is that a little bit better?
I think that's pretty
good distance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're good. But anyways, we should probably clear the dungeon so we can get to the raid boss as quickly as possible. So folks at home, if you want to support the show, there's a number of amazing ways you can do that. Number one, if you're watching the live stream right now, over at youtube.com/carpoolgaming, or if you're watching the video on demand later, don't forget to hit that like button, kick that subscribe button, roll that D20 and let us know what it rolled in the comments below. We would love to hear from you. Also, if you're listening on audio feeds, don't forget to rate us there. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or just hitting that subscribe button definitely helps the show go a long way. Also, if you want one big podcast feed with the entire Carpool Gaming cinematic universe on it, head on over to our Patreon, patreon.com/carpoolgaming. We got new Patreon content, including Garrett's Pants episode from last week. Lockleth, the Lockleth. And Matt, he's got his question post up right now.
Cool.
From the time you're listening to this. So make sure to head on over there to the old Patreon. Check all that out. Also, Garret, you're showing off your shirt, your poolside Bobby shirt.
Yes.
Which you can get over our website.
Wait, can you still get this?
No, you can't actually get that.
You cannot get it. It's exclusive. It's shut down. You cannot get the shirt anymore.
Can't get that shirt anymore, but you know what you can get over on the website, Garret?
Mm-hmm.
Extra Life merch, because Extra Life is coming up, and we've got Extra Life specific merch that is coming out. In fact, I'm going to share my screen, just show it off real quick, because Seth worked real hard on this.
That's so cute.
It looks really nice. Of course, we got Bobby, riding on the wings.
I like that carpool text design going
on.
This
one?
Yeah.
Like look how cool that looks.
Yeah.
Really
that looks cool.
Yeah.
I would like that on a coffee mug.
Yeah. So definitely check all that out over at carpoolgaming.com, where you can get those shirts, but also RPG Cave t-shirts and other t-shirts as well. Last but not least, Garret, speaking of that Extra Life, we're like a week and a half away from Extra Life if you can believe it. So, of course, we will, of course, once again be descending upon New York. A lot of the Carpool hosts will be there, and we'll be live at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time over on Twitch and YouTube on November 2nd for full days of fun with many of the Carpool Gaming hosts in person. Y'all are not going to want to miss it. It's really exciting. So make sure to come.
Ryan, I have 2 questions.
Absolutely, Garrett. Go ahead.
Okay, the first question is daylight savings. Is it happening that weekend? Does it always happen that weekend?
They always plan it where it happens the weekend of daylight.
So you have to do 25 instead of 24.
Uh-huh.
Technically speaking. Okay.
Technically speaking, yes.
Cool. And then not a question or a comment. The second one. Everyone go early vote or ignore around that time frame because election day is like right afterwards. So yeah,
it's on the Tuesday afterwards, Garrett.
It's on the Tuesday, yeah. But you're gonna be so sweated and tense about this election. Just go and vote, and then don't have to worry about it, and then you just have fun and watch Carpool Gaming live, extra live, weekend, all weekend. So
absolutely, dude.
It's
gonna be awesome. So definitely make sure to come hang out with us all day that day. And also, voting is important, Garrett. You go out there and vote. I can't vote in the U.S. election, but you
darn it, Ryan.
I know. I tried. Okay.
It's like the opposite ends of like the stress spectrum. Extra life, you're super chill, having fun with your friends, playing games, raising money for children's hospitals, and then you got the elections, which is, oof. Yeah. It's very intense in the U.S. Yeah, well, I'm just letting you know. It's like the most intense I've ever experienced.
I mean, you say this, Garrett, but I do work for a news organization.
Yes, that's
so
true.
I know exactly what you mean. What you mean. We're kind of in election season now too, even in Canada, because we have a bunch of
You have like 7 parties.
Well, we have a bunch of provincial elections that are happening right now.
Oh, okay.
Across the country. Like we just had our the BC election over the weekend, and then New Brunswick had their election last night. So, and then Saskatchewan's having theirs next week. So,
interesting.
Lots of Canadian elections.
A lot of different scattered dates for that. That's interesting. They kind of concentrated all in one for us, so it's pretty nice. But I do in the state of California, there's so many state laws they want us to vote for. Mm-hmm. It's the most I've ever experienced. Yeah. So it's interesting.
For sure. So Garrett.
Yes.
Hit me up with those 3 things that are, none of them have anything to do with the election. So please save us from election talk.
Yes, definitely. I've been gaming on my commute, by the way. Oh. My commute, I have it down, Ryan, on a route. Ready? I go a bus to BART. You know what the BART is? It's I forgot what it stands for. Yeah, it's like the
transit. Like you're kind of like you're almost like your subway system, right?
But it is the subway system of San Francisco, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, it connects San Francisco Airport all the way to the Oakland Airport, so like all across Oakland and San Francisco, and then actually scales all the way down to San Jose. So it's actually quite elaborate. But anyways, I have like about an hour commute with public transport. Excuse me, and I do a lot of gaming during that time. Well, at least a lot of sitting. If I'm able to sit down, I'm able to game. Sometimes it's super packed in the subways or whatever. But I've been recently playing 2 games on my commute.
Tell me about them.
One on the PlayStation Vita. You would never guess it. The original Ratchet and Clank.
Oh.
The first one on the Ratchet and Clank, the collection that they have there. It's hard. I didn't realize how hard I think it's harder on the Vita just because of the little nubs on the Vita itself. So the platforming is a little bit harder than like a classic PlayStation controller, but yeah. So yeah, I'm playing that, but I'm also playing Mario and Luigi. The Bowser's Inside Story.
Which one? The 3DS one or the
3DS one?
Original?
Yeah.
Okay.
With the little minions. Very cool. Very cute. I think I'm over halfway done with that one. So yeah, I just take my 3DS and Vita on the go, and it's so small, so convenient. Just throw them in my backpack, ready to go. I can't bring my Honka Steam Deck in my backpack. I would be that one guy, that one coworker that comes in, with a bulging box. He's like, "What is that?" That's my Steam Deck, my gaming system.
Now you know how I feel because Garrett, back when I first started working at my current company, when I first moved here, I was the guy that would bring my Sega Game Gear on transit.
Oh, you were the Sega Game Gear
I was
guy.
the Sega Game Gear guy, where I literally would because the Sega Game Gear, if you've never seen one in person, it's also like the size of the Steam Deck. So I would bring it everywhere with me, and people would just give me the weirdest looks, and I loved it. I relished every minute of it, sitting there playing Sonic 2 on my Game Gear while traveling around. Or the best part was, I have the optional accessory for the Game Gear, which is called the Power Base Converter, and essentially it's a giant cartridge slot that slots into the cartridge slot on the Game Gear and allows you to play Sega Master System games on the Game Gear. So I'm just sitting on the bus playing Rambo on the Sega Master System on this giant Game Gear. And it's this big contraption, and it was so bulky and so obnoxious. It's so great.
Were you like what, 16, 17?
No, this was like 10 years ago, Garrett.
You did this 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Why did you do it in 2014?
Why not?
Oh my goodness!
I did it. Actually, I did it again like a couple of years ago as well. Like I brought my Game Gear on the transit for an entire week to see what that was like.
Ryan, I need to preach about the emulation scene. But anyways, I want to take a jab at the Game Gear. You're playing Sonic 2 for like 5 minutes, and then it goes. You just burned out 8 batteries. Is that how it goes?
I will correct you, Garrett. The Sega Game Gear lasts about 30 to 40 minutes on 8 batteries. Okay.
Okay.
30 to 40 minutes.
And then with the Master System Mega cartridge, it's down to 15 minutes.
No, it's still about the same, actually.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Surprising. Okay.
No, believe it or not, the thing is about the Sega Game Gear that most people don't know is it's actually basically just a portable Master System. Like, the only reason why it needed the cartridge, the thing that slots into it, is essentially it just adapts the cartridge slot to take the Master System cartridges because they're so big. They're much bigger than the Game Gear cartridges, obviously. But otherwise, the hardware is exactly the same.
I wonder how many people was interested in what you were doing. The Game Gear screen is so small too, right? It's pretty small.
It's a very small, like 4x3 kind of screen.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay. Let's go to the next thing here.
Number 2.
Grilling. I actually went out and grilled some stuff with a friend's celebration over the weekend. It was really nice because on the rooftop of our apartment we have a grill and we have a nice view of the city, and it was pretty good. We grilled some lamb ribs, the lollipops. We grilled some wings and vegetables and potatoes. And my inner Texas grilling gene just came out. Oh, right? My ingrained it's I don't know, it's some sort of supernatural process that happens once you're born in Texas, and it just instills you with this gene that automatically makes you really good at grilling.
Clearly, it just means, Garrett, that you put the lamb in like a nice brine, and you had you had some great like spices that you wanted to add to it, and all kinds of great stuff. I'm getting hungry just thinking about that, Garrett, because I haven't had barbecued food in a very long time because I don't have a barbecue, even though my building has them. I just don't use them.
Oh, you don't have you have a grill in the building?
Yeah, we have on our 8th floor we have this outdoor patio where they have barbecues set up. But I don't go down there because that would involve leaving my room.
That's true.
But dude, that sounds so good. I imagine it was probably very tasty, Garrett.
It was very tasty, and it was an enjoyable evening of a lot of food. So there you go, grilling. Go out, people, grill some stuff, especially this time. Well, it's about to get cold.
Well, especially here, we were down to 10 degrees or less this week, Garrett. 10 degrees Celsius. So it's starting to get there. Winter's
getting cold. Yeah. And then the third thing, right? I want to talk about handhelds here, and I know it's related to your Game Gear story. I need to preach you about how easy and accessible these emulation little Retroid machines are. I've been just catching up on YouTube. It's like every week, like there's this company called Ambernick that just kind of churns out a handheld a week. It's kind of crazy how much they want to do. Or it's like, oh, you want this design? Go for it. You want this design? Like if you want a handheld kind of more for, let's say, the Game Gear or the Sega Master System, they have a handheld for that, that type of thing. Retroid Pocket just came out with the Mini, Retroid Pocket Mini. It's like the perfect 4x3, most powerful 4x3 aspect ratio handheld retro system. Runs on Android and can play all the way up till PS2 and stuff like that very well. So but anything past that, you're getting into wider screen territory, and it really doesn't matter. And then the Retroid Pocket, is it 5? Yeah, it's 5. It's about to come out. And now they're getting into OLED screens, like all these, the Amronics and the Odins and the Retro Pockets. They're like tapping it as, oh, okay.
They see that Switch OLED and that Steam Deck OLED selling. They're like, we need to get on this. Apparently.
Exactly. QLED or whatever they call it now.
Yeah.
Good on them, trying to make it more premium and having a nice kind of layout. And then also the support on the OS side has been pretty big too, especially on the Linux side. You got a lot of developers supporting custom Linux OS systems and images specifically for these handhelds. So you would have it's Linux based, but it's like their own OS, and it's very simplified. It's very thinking about what would a handheld heavy user would like. And it looks so good. It's a very vibrant community, even though Nintendo's trying to shut them down all the time.
Would Nintendo try and do that? I mean, they didn't.
I don't know.
They didn't want people to know what their Super Special project was this week either.
Oh my goodness, that thing leaks like it was no tomorrow.
Oh, I know. It was like so quick, like instantly as soon as it went up. It's like, well, everyone knows what this is.
Yeah, pretty much. But anyways, I just want to say the handheld community very strong, and I'm very much looking forward over the next, 2 or 3 years where it's gonna lead to. I'm sure it's just gonna be more powerful for the same price. You're gonna get better emulation later on. It's not going away, even though certain parties don't want it to thrive. It's gonna definitely thrive. So
yeah, well, that's one of those things where they can't stamp out all of those. Like that's just not how that works.
GitHub is a wonderful thing, and if people don't know what GitHub is, it's like you think of it as the biggest repository for code ever. Like people publish there all the time, and that's where all of the stuff kind of leaks into, is in GitHub. So but anyways.
Now, Garrett, before we move on, 2 things.
Yes.
Number one, clearly these handhelds are very powerful since they play PS2 games. Will they run VIP starring Pamela Anderson on the PlayStation 2?
I'm sure they could, if you really wanted to.
I mean, they probably also run Charlie's Angels on PS2 as well.
Yeah.
Equally great video game, Garrett.
I mean, my Steam Deck can do that, but also these handhelds can as well.
And second question comes to us from Yarded in the chat, who asks, do you two have any interest in the Analog 3D that went on sale the other day? Now, for folks that don't know, the Analog 3D is essentially a brand new recreation, an FPGA recreation of the Nintendo 64. From Analog, they have a bunch of great consoles. I've been a big proponent of their products because I love the Analog Pocket, the Analog Mega SG, which, by the way, I'm bringing both of those to Extra Life.
Nice.
Those are kind of like my 2 go-to systems that I'm going to be bringing. And I think both of them are very, very good products. And they've done a bunch of other stuff. So this is just their take on the N64. So are either of us interested in that? For me, I was very excited when they announced this. And I looked at the price and I'm like, this is about the prices that you'd have to pay if you wanted to buy an HDMI modded N64. Because I think it's going for $249.99.
Right.
This one actually outputs in 4K because it scales up 10 times from the original base resolution of 240 by 400. So,
Cool.
yeah, like this is a device that I'm interested in getting, but I'm not day one on because I'm not the biggest N64 fan. But at the same time, I've always really wanted to maybe get into N64 in a big way, and I find it tough to do it with the base console because of the way the anti-aliasing works and things like that. And it sounds like this system's going to solve a lot of that stuff. Like, I think like it's not going to look like just a muddy mess to look at, like a muddy mess of pixels to look at every time you want to play it. So I think if I'm ever going to get into N64 games properly, then I think something like this is probably the way to do it. So I'm not day one, but if like a couple months from now, if they're still available, then I'm probably going to pick one up because they're still available now. If people want to still grab them, because a lot of times analog products sell out very quickly. Like the Pocket, you couldn't. When the initial wave sold out, like it took 8 months for them to restock it, and it was sold out within like 5 hours of it going up. But I'm curious to know what you think about this, Garrett. I don't think you're a huge N64 person either, right?
I had an N64 and I really enjoyed it. That was like when I'm thinking of my gaming lifespan. That's, one of the earliest ones that I played a lot. Played a lot more than the PlayStation for sure. And I like it because of more of the, multiplayer aspect. I love playing Star Fox. I love playing Mario Kart and Mario Party and Super Smash Brothers, stuff like that. I'm not really a fan of analog, not because of the concept of making these premium products and everything. I really enjoy that, and I really enjoy that they're really into the FPGA, which is it's as native as you can get.
Yeah.
With like you're not emulating. You're literally playing the logic, the way that you put in the cartridge and how it runs. It's no different than an N64 base console.
And like
basically.
For purists like me, who's someone who can physically tell the difference between emulation and not, like that's the main reason why I don't dip my toe into emulation, is because it to me it's tough for me to play games on by emulation because my brain knows the difference. So that's why like I am more looking for products like this versus something like the Retroid Pocket. Whereas on the other hand, Garrett, if you're into the emulation scene, like there's no reason to be interested in a product like this, I think.
Yeah, and I think also if you don't have if you don't have the physical game hardware and you're not willing to make that effort to even scavenge or look for the cartridges out there, then there's really no point in this is definitely a premium enthusiastic product for those fans, for that audience. It is meant for the Nintendo fan that loved the N64, that has the collection already in place. It's another it's another great avenue. I think on the other side, and I just see some practices with Analog Pocket itself, they're very expensive, and then they don't budge at all with the price.
If anything, it goes up.
It goes up, and it looks like they just, this is just, they're selling well, and we're not putting these prices down, and that's that. And it's just that, okay, cool.
No, because they know that audience will just buy them. Like that's kind of their whole MO, because like they kind of have the market cornered on this type of device, right? Like, we have other stuff out there like the Paullin Mega and whatnot, but all those use emulation, and they're just not as good of a product as this. So that they know they can charge an arm and a leg for something like that.
Yeah, and I was more into the Analog Pocket, like, oh, that would be really cool to have one, especially because it can be, if you get like the adapter or whatever, you can even do the Sega Game Gear games or something like that. Yeah.
You can do Atari Lynx games. You can do a bunch of different game types. And also, not only with that, but something unique about the Pocket, Garrett, that you, of all people, will probably appreciate, is that it has the analog OS on it that is fully customizable, that then you can load games onto an SD card and play them that way. Using different cores for it, like because it's got an NES core on it. It's got a Super Nintendo core on it. If you want to play those games via the Analog Pocket, you can.
Yes.
That's another way, like another feature that it has, and it's really cool. So like they're like that. Whereas this N64, even though it has the Analog OS, it's more locked down, so you can't do stuff like that on it.
Right. But it looks cool, man. It looks like a very nice form factor. Do I have it correctly that they have N64 controller ports?
Yeah, it has all the original controller ports, so you can plug in any old N64 controller because it doesn't come with a controller. So
Which is interesting.
So you either have to supply your own original N64 controllers, or they have like the wireless 8-bit DO one that they sell with it. The main thing the last thing I'm going to just say about this before we move on to the topic, Garrett, is that this is the only way we're probably going to get 4K StarCraft 64.
That's true.
Sean and I have been shouting from the rooftops, we give us StarCraft 64 in 4K, and this is the way we're going to do it then. StarCraft 64 in 4K on the Analog 3D.
We're going to love it. We're going to
go.
absolutely love playing StarCraft with an N64 controller. It's everyone's dream.
Look, it was fun back in the day because actually me and my friend Evan, we rented that game from Blockbuster and we played multiplayer together because there's multiplayer in it, Garrett. 2-player split screen where you're competitive. You're fighting against each other. So you better believe.
And it's split screen.
Yeah, it's split screen multiplayer.
I mean, yeah, interesting.
The best part was, since it's a strategy game, I mean, I may or may not have taken a glance over at Evan's screen and be like,
of course.
Oh, he's building this. I'm just going to build this that perfectly counters what he's building.
Exactly, screen
and
peeking.
just Hoppel stopped him, and he's just like, what happened? And I'm like, I don't know. Must have been the wind, you know?
It's actually kind of crazy that it's able to take split screen of that game. There's a lot of stuff going on in StarCraft, like a lot of moving assets on the screen.
It doesn't do it well, but
doesn't do it well.
It doesn't. Yeah, I'm interested to see how that all translates over to the Analog 3D. But Garrett, that's not an RPG because that's the thing about the N64. There's only 2 RPGs on the entire console, and only one of them is good. So
that's true.
I mean, Ochre Battle 64, good game. Quest 64, no, it's played.
It's not good? Oh, okay.
No, because Garrett, now it's time to read from the sacred texts because it's time to talk about Ubisoft, Garrett. Ubisoft has been a lot in the news a lot. In fact, there was a story today about Ubisoft that people did not love very much, of course, about the new Prince of Persia game. But we're not here to talk about Prince of Persia, Garrett. We're here to talk about Ubisoft's contributions to the role-playing game genre. So this is more than just their role-playing games, their role-playing offerings. So we're going to obviously talk about those too. Because Ubisoft, believe it or not, even though they haven't, made too many modern role-playing games themselves, they've really influenced role-playing games in a lot of different ways.
Yes, they did.
And we're going to kind of go through that and talk about that a little bit. But it's interesting, Garrett, because I was looking up the kind of Ubisoft's history going all the way back to the 80s, because that's how long Ubisoft has been around. They've been making games since the Amiga PC days in the early 80s.
I'm sure that everyone knows that, yes.
Yeah, so they've been publishing games forever. For the most part, they used to do a lot of licensed games back in the NES era. Like they did a lot of Indiana Jones games, like a lot of Lucasfilm games. They did like Empire Strikes Back for NES, Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, and they did a bunch of other licensed games like that. And it wasn't really until like the early 2000s and the late 90s that they really started to branch out and kind of do their own thing with games. That's where we started to see, franchises like Rayman come about and whatnot. Interestingly enough, Garrett, I don't know if you knew this, but the Game Boy Advanced version of Lunar was done by Ubisoft.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. It's called Lunar Legend is what that port is referred to as. And it was actually the basis of what became the PSP port of Lunar and also the mobile phone version. All goes down to this like really unique like Ubisoft take on that, which I thought was really interesting. But as far as other RPGs they had their hands in, they had their hands in like Might and Magic as a franchise. They did a couple Might and Magic games.
Okay.
And just a bunch of like one-off RPGs, but nothing too big. Nothing too
Right.
crazy. Or anything.
It is like the earlier Ubisoft you're talking about, right?
Yeah, like mid 2000s
Yeah.
Ubisoft.
They seem to be, especially in that earlier time, pick what they can get and just go for it. As a publisher, as a developer, they're like, "Yep, I guess we could pick up this kind of work and just go for it." So it's interesting to hear. Was it Lunar Legend to be on that list? Isn't it like what was it? Sonic was one of them, right?
Sonic and the Dark Brotherhood.
Yeah,
BioWare
yeah,
one?
the BioWare one, yes.
Yeah.
But published by Ubisoft, right? Was
I
it?
can't remember if it was. I don't.
Okay,
I don't
never
think
mind.
it was.
Maybe I'm just making that up. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna fact check this real quick because I didn't think it was. No, it was.
Oh, okay.
Published by EA.
Oh, it was EA that did it. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. That makes more sense.
Well, yeah, because they owned BioWare at the time, right? So.
I see.
Yeah.
So sorry for that tangent. I was completely wrong.
It's all good. It's all good. But it was, I mean, really, for Ubisoft, it wasn't really until 2014 with Child of Light that they really kind of
Yeah.
decided to make their own RPG. Because, like, some of these other games I'm talking about, there are, like, ports of existing games or working in existing franchise. Whereas Child of Light really was their first, like, attempt at making, like, their own role-playing game in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And that was made by Ubisoft. Was it Montreal or Quebec? It was one of the Canadian studios. It was definitely
Ubisoft Montreal and Ubisoft Funhouse.
Okay. It was definitely a smaller team working on this. It was the sole vision of one creator that they really focus in on Child of Light. I'm glad that it was, of course, part of the UbiArt kind of initiative because they had that Valiant Hearts game as well during that time.
Yeah, they both came out around the same time, and then we also had Rayman Legends.
Rayman Legends.
And Rayman Origins as well. Like they both used the Ubisoft art engine as well.
Yeah, the Ubisoft art engine, which was super cool. It was unfortunate to not see a sequel to Child of Light come to light of day. Of course, shift directions or whatever. But
What's
it's
funny,
cool.
Garrett,
Yeah.
is Valiant Hearts got a sequel like last year, but they didn't do it. Never did a Child of Light sequel.
Really? Did I remember something like that? It really came out last year. Wow.
I think it did. Unless I'm mistaken. I mean, because it was made by Netflix.
Oh, it was a Netflix. Oh, okay, that's why.
Yeah.
Coming Home. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
That okay. That's a weird one.
Yeah. Actually,
And
no, it wasn't last year. It was this year. May 24th of this year.
And it's mixed
Yeah. No, it didn't
on,
review
on
well.
Steam. Yeah.
I remember this. But
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, Child of Light was one RPG. Even though it's, I think of Child of Light as one of those one-hit wonders, one of those critical darlings, very much like the new Prince of Persia game that just came out. It's like, oh, this is doing very well critically. Everyone seems to love it, but it's not like physically not pushing enough units or something like that.
yeah. And they
Yeah.
put it on everything. Like they tried. Like because Rybo, I'm gonna foreshadow his question, but Rybo mentions in the question that he has, he's talking about Child of Light and how it was on Wii U of all places.
Yeah.
Because it was on Wii U, it was on Vita.
It was on Vita. I beat it on. I platinumed it on Vita, and I 1000 G'd it on 360. That was my original.
Yeah,
one, yeah.
because it was also one of those cross-gen games where it was on 360, PlayStation 3, but also PlayStation 4 and Xbox. Mm-hmm. You can still play it on your PS5 today too.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, it's always on sale. It's a great RPG. But when I think of Ubisoft's contribution to the RPG genre, that was a great one, of course. Mm-hmm. But I think of all the other stuff that in their big AAA games,
Right.
really.
And I mean the other series, the big series, of course, that they've made kind of into an RPG series, at least for some installments, is Assassin's Creed.
Of course.
I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention Assassin's Creed, especially because we have Shadows coming up next year or next February, and that's another RPG in this way, where they kind of looked at what BioWare was doing at the time with Mass Effect and Dragon Age, and they were like, hey, we could do that with Assassin's Creed. And I thought that was a great idea. I really liked Origins and Odyssey. Obviously, Valhalla was way too stretched thin because it was just so friggin' long that it went on forever. But you know what? Like I really, really enjoyed the Assassin's Creed take on RPGs, but it's gonna, it kind of highlights in a lot of ways what we're gonna get into, Garrett, with kind of how Ubisoft, has kind of, changed the RPG genre in a lot of ways, despite not making a ton of RPGs. Because like I said, these are kind of like their two major RPGs that they've done at all in their history, right? So
yeah,
it's interesting to think about.
So you mentioned that they looked at BioWare's Dragon Age and Mass Effect. Do you see a lot of inspiration of that in Assassin's Creed games?
100% I do.
Okay.
Especially with the dialogue choices and the split decisions, to the multiple endings, to the way that some of the quests were structured. Like a lot of that was, even though you weren't kind of forming a party of characters like you would in a Dragon Age or Mass Effect, the story and the quest system and the way it progressed was very much of that in that BioWare flavor. Even the combat, even coming down to the combat, it felt like you were playing like Dragon Age or Mass Effect or something like that. Like it felt like a BioWare game, or even something like Jade Empire. It felt a lot like that a little bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's kind of interesting to hear that from you. I find, especially with Assassin's Creed, starting with Origins, specifically, what screams to me in that game is that they looked at Witcher 3 and they're like, we need to do that scale, that open world. I'm thinking of just the grand scale of things. I think that's when you're right about the scale. Yeah,
for sure. Because that's not something indicative of BioWare games. It's the mass scale until Inquisition came out. Dragon Age Inquisition was a game with massive scale. That was kind of almost in a lot of ways like, it was one of the reasons why it won Game of the Year in 2014 was because of the giant scale of the maps and how much there was to do with them.
Yeah, I see. And then also, I want to bring it back a little bit, especially with the Assassin's Creed. I think, the RPG genre, I guess you could say, definitively Origins. Oh yeah, that's an RPG. But really, before that, I can see a lot of the open world, aspect of it, starting with even Assassin's Creed 3. Yeah. Especially with the open zone maps. Of course, they had open zone maps beforehand, but I think really at the start of 3, where it's like, okay, you can hunt, okay, you can go on your ship, that type of stuff. And I think 4, Black Flag really blew it up. Yeah. And it's just like, I think Black Flag was the game where I thought, wow, this is so cool. And it's very close to an RPG, but it's not. Right. It's more of the open world aspect that's really pushing it. It wasn't really
until Syndicate that they really started to play with the RPG stuff. Because you were kind of leveling both the two Fry siblings in Syndicate, and then you had a bunch of different equipment for the characters, skill trees, like the whole nine as far as RPG features. So that's really where they started to kind of try to go in that kind of RPG direction with Syndicate, which I loved. I love Syndicate. I think that game's great.
Syndicate is fantastic. I actually absolutely loved Unity. I don't know. I know a lot of people didn't care, especially day one.
That game just gets a bad rap because people's faces didn't exist in that game.
Yeah, on day one. They patched it later, and it was actually okay. But yeah, I could say with Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, they really, as you said, they mashed in a lot of dialogue choice in there. They mashed in a lot. I think the loot is a big thing now in Assassin's Creed, where it really wasn't beforehand. There was a lot of, just essential weapons, and you could get upgrades a little bit here and there. But really, starting with Origins, like, okay, here's your loot system. Now you got your green, purple, orange weapons with the stats everywhere, and that's pretty much.
Got to get those orange legendary weapons, Garrett, because that's the same color scheme that World of Warcraft uses for their weapon.
It must have really started with World of Warcraft, because the first one I noticed was Borderlands 1. Yeah, had that as well. So
it kind of became universal after World of Warcraft in a lot of ways. Like that was kind of like the de facto game. That had like green was common, blue was rare, Purple was like
ultra rare,
like or ultra rare, and
very
then,
rare.
Orange was like the legendary or the most powerful gear.
Right.
Yeah. Yarden chimes in the chat and asks, "Can we call Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla a trilogy?" You certainly can, because like the overarching story stretches it kind of like bookends with Valhalla.
And the present day story stuff.
Yeah, the present day story stuff, because you follow Layla in all three of those games. Like she's like kind of like the present day protagonist.
Will Shadows be a different protagonist in the present story?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Or at least I'm assuming it will be based on the way that they ended Valhalla, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
But yeah.
Interesting.
We're going into massive spoilers about that, but yes, 100% Yarden. They are definitely a trilogy. Like those three games are meant to be a trilogy, even though like they take place in completely different settings.
I'm really curious how Shadows is gonna play out. I know a lot of people have like hot discussions about Shadows in general, just because of I don't know. There's just a lot of social kind of like discussions going on with that game, especially the choices they've made. But at the same time, I'm just curious. They're going back to like this dual character setup, which they have not done since Syndicate, and that was like the only other time they've done it. So I'm very curious how that dynamic is going to go with this game. It's going to be our feudal Japan RPG game that Ghost of Tsushima overtook basically, and now we Ghost of Yotei. So I think they have to kind of prove themselves with this one.
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
think so too. And I have high hopes for that game, despite the fact that the reason it was that, as far as we can tell, the reason it was delayed was due to polish reasons after what happened with Star Wars Outlaws. So I am hoping that they can nail it with this one, because again, this is kind of what we've always asked for with Assassin's Creed, like a feudal Japan Assassin's Creed game where you play as like a ninja and a samurai. Like, come on, like this is what we've wanted, this whole like what we've been asking for a long time now for Assassin's Creed, and I hope it sticks to the landing. Like I was really looking forward to it this year.
Yeah.
But having it come out next year, I think is totally fine. I'm excited for it still.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's coming out with every other game in February, Garrett, because we've got that, we got Avowed, we got all kinds of stuff coming out next February. So.
We got too many games. February's the new November.
I mean, it really is. Don't you remember what happened this year with all the games that released this
really,
February?
November freed up. Like, no joke. Like, we got the Dragon Age, the Veilguard, and then we got Mario and Luigi.
Yeah.
And then we got Dragon Quest 3D HD.
Yeah. Although Dragon Age technically is a Halloween game. It came out in October. So.
Yeah. I'm just saying, in terms of fall gaming in November and December, it's RPGs. It's actually not that much compared to February. It's like Monster Hunter's in there, Yakuza's in there. It's just like RPG fans are just gonna be like, I have to make a choice on February. But anyways, I think Shadows will. I hope it does well, because I want to see where they take it from there, and I still would rather have Assassin's Creed be smaller. I rather would have a 30 to 40 hour focus experience. I understand Mirage was trying to do that, but at the same time, I think Mirage was trying to be more classic Assassin's Creed.
It was,
I'm thinking more, hey, it's still an RPG, but now it's scaled back and is more focused. I think I would rather have that in an Assassin's Creed game than this giant open world template Ubisoft game that they've been doing for the past, I don't know, like 15 years now.
Well, that's one of my favorite things about older BioWare games, because almost all the old BioWare games, except for Inquisition, I think is the only one that really kind of is outside of this bubble. Almost all of the older BioWare games are all 30 to 40 hours or less. Like they're games that respect your time, and they don't really feel like they're they have a ton of bloat, or the anything that feels like bloat is optional. Like they specifically kind of draw that line in the sand. Like that's one of the reasons why I love Mass Effect, because if you want to mainline Mass Effect, you can finish that game in like 10 hours if you want to.
Right.
Like it feels like the perfect length for a game like that. And I hope that you're right, Garrett. I hope that's a point that they kind of take away where not every RPG needs to be 60 hours. Like, one of the reasons I loved Metaphor was it went away from the Persona formula of being more than 60 hours, right? Like, that was one of the things that I praised it for. And I feel like, we kind of got away from that a little bit because they wanted to add value to the game so people weren't trading in the game right away or not. But it's just like, well, you're more than welcome to put extra optional content in there, but just don't pad the length of the original game. Like, the reason why Valhalla was so long is it took 80 hours just to mainline that game. And then
which
let
is
alone
crazy.
everything else, right? Like, there was just too much to do in that game. Like, that was a problem. Like, you don't need to.
It really was. And also, I think a little bit what's different between Valhalla and, let's say, a Witcher 3, at least for me, it's just like, is that Witcher 3 always gave me something else to do. It always gave me, it's like, okay, now go to the next beast hunt. Okay, now go to and craft that thing. Okay, there's like 7 question marks to the left and the right. Go and figure it out, basically. Whereas Valhalla, it's like, I don't know where to go. There's this bunch of fog in this whole map. I guess I have to go into the fog and pray there's something for me. And then, of course, there's plenty of stuff to do in the game. It's just not clearly shown to you. It's not really directed a lot.
That's only map 1 as well. Because there's other locations you go to that have their own giant maps of things to do in them as well.
How's that just... I thought that was the... Oh, gosh.
No. There's more than just, like, the one giant map. There's
of
other
England.
locations you go to with their own giant maps, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so I think Valhalla, hopefully they learn their lesson with Valhalla. It's like, that's a little too big. There's a little too much. And I think it worked out for that specific year, especially COVID happening. So people spent a lot of time just playing games. So I think it worked out for them. I don't think they can pull that off. It's not sustainable to do that. But yeah, Assassin's Creed, I'm hopeful for their direction. I hope I still believe it can be an RPG. Mm-hmm. It's just let's see what they do all after Shadows. It seems like they're all in with Assassin's Creed franchise in general. It's like, hey, this is kind of the franchise that's making money for us. So
well, we've got that like Coven Assassin's Creed game that's coming too that they already released that I'm blanking on the name of. Like, that's supposed to be the game after Shadows, and then they've got...
It's crazy.
It's part of this whole, like, their whole, like, Assassin's Creed kind of game as service model that they've got coming. So,
gosh.
Yeah, but, Garrett, what's interesting is that I also want to talk about a franchise that isn't a role-playing series, but kind of fits into this thing, because it's really shaped role-playing games in a big way, and that's Far Cry. Because
of course.
Far Cry 3...
Yes.
People don't know if they haven't been following the game industry for a long time. People don't realize how influential of a game Far Cry 3 was on game design, period. Because that was the game that really defined what we now refer to as the modern day quote unquote Ubisoft formula of the big open map. You're taking out towers. There's just different things kind of populated all over the place that you just go and see and do in whatever order you want to go do them in. And Far Cry 3 in particular had like 3 different islands you would go to. And you would just go to them as the story would progress. And you would unlock new activities and new side quests and new things to do everywhere you went. And I felt like ever since that came out, you've seen just that formula applied to so many more different genres of games, but especially role-playing games in particular. Because I felt like it really, inspired... Like, if a game like Far Cry 3 didn't exist, you wouldn't have a game like Dragon Age Inquisition as an example that went in that. Or maybe even something like Witcher 3. Like, they might not have gone in the kind of the direction that Witcher 3 went in if it wasn't for a game like Far Cry 3 in particular.
I agree with you. I remember playing Far Cry 3 initially on my Xbox 360. I actually borrowed it from a neighbor in college. my dorm neighbor next door had a 360 copy. I played through it, and totally agree with you, Ryan. That game in particular is the template. Like, think of the blueprint of kind of the open world game in general, the open world game, because it can be applied to many different things. What screams out to me a lot that are Sony over the shoulder open world games really not follow, but it's clearly the inspiration was coming from Far Cry 3.
Yeah.
A lot and it's really all the, as you said, the side stuff and the busy. I say busy work, but like it's stuff that you need to do in order to progress.
Like capturing territory by taking out towers.
Yes.
Or like the side quests or crafting. Because there was a big crafting element in Far Cry. Like you'd have to go hunt specific animals. So then like you go in the ocean and hunt sharks. So you can make a wallet out of shark, like shark skin or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like that was a big part of that as well. Like, and again, it really kind of like, even after that, just looking at crafting design, like crafting systems in games, like a lot of that came down to the formula that was generated from Far Cry 3, which is interesting when you look back on it.
Yeah, so you see a lot of, I mean, of course, a lot of those elements got embedded into Assassin's Creed franchise, but also, stuff like Watch Dogs and Immortals, Phoenix Rising, all these other things, has that open world template. And like if any kind of open world RPG comes out today, it's like, that's a lot of Far Cry 3 energy.
Yep. That's a lot of quest markers and bases to take out and stuff like that. And I'm like, yep, I did all that in Far Cry 3 back on the PS3.
Yeah. So, and I love the Far Cry franchise. I still, even though it's a first person adventure shooter type of game, I always still think of it as like more or less a role playing game just because of the way you kind of go through the game and progress around and interact with the open world. And then you get better weapons and better skills, and you progress like that. You have skill trees.
Yeah,
literally.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
Like it was a big game for like showing us what a simplified RPG skill tree could be like something that's not too overly complicated. That was kind of the template for a lot of games that borrow RPG elements, but also just modern role playing games. Like kind of use like that same kind of approach to developing your skills for your character is the skill system in Far Cry 3, which is interesting.
Yeah, and I still haven't played Far Cry 6, but I really want to get to it at some point. I loved Far Cry 5. 4 was just okay to me, and and of course I think they proved that it's scalable as well. They've made very more, smaller, more focused Far Cry projects as well with New Dawn and Far Cry Primal.
Blood Dragon as well.
Blood Dragon was the coolest thing, man.
The April Fool's joke that became a game. I loved that. I loved that.
Yeah.
That was the story of how Blood Dragon came about.
Yeah. So, I think Ubisoft they kind of struck gold with Far Cry, but I think they overstayed its welcome with the open world stuff. I think they kind of get that. Yeah. I think that's what they try to get into the multiplayer scene. It's like, hey, let's just see if we can have a one-hit type of wonder in the multiplayer online service
and
scene.
I mean, they kind of did with Rainbow Six.
Like Rainbow Six was huge. Rainbow Six Siege is big. Yes,
and For Honor I think qualifies a little bit too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think of the free-to-play kind of like multiplayer extraction shooter.
Like X-Defiant.
Or what was the other one
Rainbow
that they
Six
did?
Extraction. There was also the Battle Royale game that they did that I'm blanking on.
Yeah, the Battle Royale game. That's what I'm
played that. I played 2 matches of that, and I was like, I'm uninstalling this. I'm good. I'm going to look it up while you continue to talk.
Yeah, but anyways, the Ubisoft, the open world stuff, I'm pretty much over it. So I'm curious what the direction is with the new Far Cry game. If it's gonna be more or less the same. How are they gonna scale it? Is it gonna be super grand? I just hope that these projects become smaller, and it's okay to be smaller because their worth is gonna be just the same.
Yeah. So first off,
that
Battle Royale game, Hyperscape, is what it was called.
Hyperscape.
It's got such a generic name. I totally forgot what it was called. But yes, I remember playing it, and I'm like, this is not good.
I remember it like running on like sky platforms or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until you fall through them, and then you're on the ground level, and you're like, oh no, this is where all the people are, and I'm gonna get murdered.
Yes. Now I remember that.
But yeah, you got Hyperscape, but also like Far Cry 6 in particular, Garrett. One of the things I didn't love about it was because it kind of had the same problem that Valhalla did, where it was like it towards the end it kind of like overstayed its welcome because the map was huge for that game as well. Like it was very much wet. Like they twisted the knob a little bit too far. But we've been seeing a lot of developers kind of realize that mistake and kind of like twist the knob back the other way. Like that's why it was so refreshing to see Prince of Persia,
The
Lost Crown come out this year, where it was like a smaller, tighter experience. And I think like Ubisoft kind of gets that now, and it's just, you know, they're trying to turn the ship around, but the ship only turns so quickly in a lot of ways. But I think like they're gonna get there with, and maybe Shadows might still be too big of an experience because I still think.
Yeah, it's gonna be big.
It might be too soon for them to realize that mistake. But we've been seeing that in the game development space, where a lot of developers are recognizing that people crave shorter experiences, and then if they want extra content, that's what DLC is for. Like that's the whole reason y'all sell season passes, is so that, you know, if we want more content, it's there, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think Ubisoft contributed, especially the open world elements, into a lot of role-playing games. Of course, role-playing games went the extra mile and done their own spin on it, of course. But yeah, I'm just very curious from now on forward. I think they're kind of done with Watch Dogs, right? They said they're pretty much good.
Yeah, or at least for now, there's no planned Watch Dogs games as far as we know of.
Yeah, and I'm curious how much it seems like there's writing on the wall that they're gonna be scaling down a lot of their headcount.
Like the only games we know that they have in development right now are the Splinter Cell remake, which is still apparently still coming.
Division 3
a while away. Well, Division 3 got canceled. So.
Oh really? Division 3 got canceled? Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Just like Heartland got canceled as well at the same time.
Right. Oh,
like
okay.
That free to play Division game that was coming. And then we've got, you know, Just Dance, which comes out every year.
Yeah, that's an annual thing, of course. Yeah.
And then Beyond Good and Evil 2, maybe at some point one day. That's still in the hopper, but otherwise, like past Assassin's Creed Shadows, we know that Wiccan Assassin's Creed game is coming as well. That again, I'm blanking on the name of, but besides that, we don't really know what else they're making at that point.
Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, we'll see how the direction goes. I just hope. I know they're putting a lot of bets on their existing IP and franchises. I think they understand the worth of their games. I think they ramped up too much on open world template fluff content.
Yeah.
And they just gotta, hey, scale it back. Just and then you'll be fine. You can skip. Honestly, Valhalla could have been 3 games.
Yeah.
It really could have been 3 $60 full-fledged games that they could have released year by year, and no one would have noticed a difference.
Yeah.
With what it is now, I guess.
Yeah. Although I have to give a special shout out to our mutual friend Donnie over at PSVG. Huge fan of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, to the point.
Yeah, it was just.
I don't know if you remember.
It's crazy.
But
yeah.
I remember Donnie telling me that he played through all the DLC for it too, and that's just like even more stuff. But I know he really, really enjoyed that game a lot. And I actually, you know, I didn't mind Valhalla. I just wish it. You know, my common complaint is the same as everyone else's. I just wish it was shorter. But I really like it. And you know, the main thing is, Garrett, if they will ever want to, you know, go back to basics, if they ever want to, you know, scale back, really what they need to do is you just go out there and just remake this classic Inspector Gadget's Crazy Maze from the PlayStation 1. Because, Garrett, this is a Ubisoft game starring
Not surprising.
Inspector Gadget. And he goes around and it's a maze. You know, you're outside.
That's what they should do. They should just go back to making Inspector Gadget games.
Exactly.
That's it.
I don't know what we were thinking. Or go make a new Indiana Jones game. Indiana Jones and the Lost Crusade 2 or something like that. Go make that.
You know, that's a good exercise, though. Like, what franchises would you like to have the open world fluff template game? We got the Harry Potter game, which I always enjoy, but it definitely follows that. It is an open world role-playing-ish game.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of side quests that it's in the wizarding world, and I love how it's like early 1900s or late 1800s, somewhere around that time. So it's like before like kind of urbanization or whatever, and it's different, full-fledged different characters. So I'm very curious, Ryan, is there a franchise that's like, man, I want the Ubisoft template fluff game?
Oh man, I mean, you're asking me, Garrett, the person on staff who probably is not into open world games the least out of anyone on the Carpool staff. There was a long time, Garrett, actually, funny story. I mean, this is gonna be
funny story.
It's that I got so sick of open world games in the late PS3 and early PS4 era that I just stopped playing open world games. If a game was like a big open world game, I wouldn't play it no matter how good it was, because I was just like, nope.
Yeah.
I'm kind of done with these games. But yeah, like, is there a franchise I really want that? And the answer is no, because I think we have a lot of the games, a lot of the franchises that I kind of wanted to see in that. Like we got Lord of the Rings with Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War, both really good games. We got that with Star Wars, with other Star Wars games. I mean, I guess the one that comes to mind, which is just sitting on my desk, of course, conveniently, Garrett, as if I knew you were going to ask this question, is Dragon's Lair. Just get a big old Dragon's Lair game where you play as Dirk the Daring, and you go around and you do some fantasy stuff, kill some dragons, get some gold, roll, that would be cool. Avoid giant marbles that try and squish you, all the Dragon's Lair things.
That would be pretty interesting.
Yeah. What about you?
I think and this game is actually in development. I'm curious where it's going to go. The Avatar: Last Airbender franchise definitely needs some, like, either an MMO or this kind of open world adventure game that's the Ubisoft template. I would absolutely love it. So the people who are behind it, that's making this new Avatar game, is Saber Interactive.
Right.
And I think it's with I think it's Paramount Developer Gaming Studios.
Yeah, because they have their own studio working with them on it. Yeah. I remember reading about that.
I'm curious how that would go. I mean, of course, Saber, did really good with Space Marine 2, but like, we just never know. Because they also promise a KOTOR remake.
I was just about to bring that up. They are still the ones technically saying the KOTOR remake is still in development, Garrett.
Yeah. So I'm curious how that's going to go. The premise of that one, if you don't know, Ryan, what Avatar: Last Airbender kind of, or folks out there, it's about these people who can bend the elements according to martial arts, mixed martial arts or whatever, and then you could do water, fire, air, earth bending, and then you got this one person called the Avatar that can master all four, and he or she is the one that brings peace to the whole, all four nations or whatever. Apparently this game is set way before the current TV show time, like before Aang, which is the original show or whatever. So it'll be a full set of different characters, full set of different lore, which would be really great. I'm totally in on these franchises. Like, hey, it's a different time period. It's a bunch of different quests and different story and different characters. So curious how that will go.
That game is also going to take place before the M. Night Shyamalan masterpiece film, The Last Airbender, as well.
Oh boy. Well, now it's overshadowed by there's a Netflix real live action TV show.
That one's coming. Yep, I heard.
I haven't. Season 2 is about to come out of that one. I haven't seen the first one all the way through, but
I've never seen a single episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
The cartoon show is it's my favorite show. It's by far, especially the first one. And Legend of Korra is fantastic as well. The games, don't worry about the games. The tie games
But I want that platinum trophy for pressing circle just a bunch of times on my controller.
For 2 minutes, yes. Yeah. Anyways, Ubisoft, I I think there's a lot of contributions in terms of open world design and quests, and Far Cry and Assassin's Creed are shining examples of that.
Absolutely. And I hope, honestly, they explore more of the RPG space.
Me
down
too.
the road with some of their other games. But we got one question this week, Garrett, from the NPCs. And I had mentioned this question earlier. This one comes to us from Rybo, who says, I am super excited for this topic. Ubisoft made a 2D role-playing game that I believe was on the Wii U, but I can't remember the name of it, and it bugs me. It had a gorgeous 2D art style. I wonder what game that was, he was talking about.
I wonder what that is.
Yeah, we talked about Child of Light earlier. Sorry, Rybo. Rybo says, anyhow, while we anxiously await the sequel to Square's notorious classic Various Daylife, what RPG do you want a sequel to, but you know will never actually happen? So here's the thing. Everyone knows my default answer is Parasite Eve. I mean, that's duh. But I don't even think that really qualifies for this question because we already got a sequel to Parasite Eve. It's called Parasite Eve 2 and even got a third sequel with the third birthday. So I'm going to disqualify that one from my choosing this week. And I'm going to go for one that I've been waiting for a sequel to forever, that had a planned sequel that then was canceled, and I was very sad about it.
Oh, no.
Because this game I really enjoy a lot. And it's Jade Empire on the original Xbox from BioWare. I mean, I love BioWare. I've always been a big BioWare fan. And Jade Empire was one of the games that made me fall in love with BioWare in the first place. For the folks that haven't played it, again, it was on original Xbox, and it's currently on PC, and it's backwards compatible on current Xbox platforms. And it takes place in this middle era China. And it's got it's all about Chinese mythology and martial arts, and it's almost like you're playing like a kung fu movie, interacting with Chinese mythology. And it's such a super cool concept for a game, combined with the fact that it's a BioWare game, so of course it's got all the choice stuff with alternate endings and different party members depending on how you act towards people. You'll be able to recruit certain people, or certain people will leave or betray you later in the story. And it's just a really, really well put together martial arts game, like a really good action RPG that never got a sequel. It never got a sequel. One was planned, one was supposed to come to Xbox 360, but it was canceled after EA bought the company. So it kind of irks me a little bit that they never went back to Jade Empire, because they went back to Dragon Age. They went back to Mass Effect. Like, we even got a sequel to Knights of the Old Republic, but we never got a sequel to Jade Empire. And it makes me sad that still has just never happened to this day. So this choice for me is an easy one. It's Jade Empire. I wish they would do a sequel to it at some point.
Yeah, but it's probably not going to happen. I'm sorry. I was thinking about this question a little bit, and actually a lot of RPGs that I wanted are getting sequels, or they don't have direct sequels, but they have it's the next in the series type of deal with fresh new things or whatever. But I am gonna take your game, Parasite Eve, because I very much would like a Parasite Eve 2. At least I would like to see someone do a survival turn-based role-playing game nowadays, because you never see it. You don't see even the indie studios getting into it at all either, which is kind of interesting. They fill a bunch of niche genres, and of course I honestly think they do play out a lot of the Metroidvania genre. But of course there's a lot of great let's say Chrono Trigger or Mario Party based or even just classic inspired 2D Retroid RPGs, which is great. Okay, now can we get a very gritty, very survival horror turn-based RPG? That would be really cool. So a sequel to Parasite Eve would be fantastic.
I mean, yeah, because that would be a slam dunk too. I mean, and to be fair, Parasite Eve technically got its sequel, Parasite Eve 2, but it's very different from the first game. Like it's much closer to something like Resident Evil than the first game was. So yeah. I mean, yeah, a lot of PlayStation 1 era role-playing games just never really got true sequels like that in a way. And of course my alternate answer, my honorable mention is the game of the shirt I'm wearing, Chrono Cross. I wish Chrono Cross got its sequel, but never did, because that game's really good. But everyone just is hung up on Chrono Trigger being amazing, but they forget that Chrono Cross is actually a good game too. So my other one is Chrono Cross. But
got it.
There you go.
There you go.
That's going to do it for tonight's episode of the RPG Cave. Also, next RPG episode, I'm going to spoil the topic for next week's episode. Or I should say later this week. Because we are going to do a Halloween Spooktacular episode, Garrett, where we are going to talk about horror franchises we want to have as survival role-playing games. So look out for that later this week. But anyways, it's now time to say thank you to all of our patrons over at patreon.com/carpoolgaming, starting with our ultimate producers, Jonathan Brown, the man behind the music on the PlayStation Drive and the Xbox Drive. You can find the link tree to all his music over at Purple Monkey Entertainment at linktr.ee/pme.jib. Cwagmire, who reminds you that the best babes are Xenobabes, and TechMike, who says whether you're a Kevesi or Agnian, you're a Xenobabe at heart. Links to all of our ultimate producers can always be found in the description of the podcast. Garrett, I saw you almost trying to correct me there. I wasn't going to allow it. Nope, can't happen. Our platinum producers, Smokin Joe, Solo, the Captain, and Tim Paullin, and our gold members, Adam K, Anna, Awesome Dave 1337, BobLoblaw, Brad Moore, Brian Reese, Cecily Carrozza, Dan and Luma, Dannohh, Drellesh, Emily O'Kelly, Hoppel, John 32, Ligerwoods 330, OldMrFrump, Patrice Mallette, Peje, Shane Erickson, TheDonRob, and the Jiggy Collector. Huge thank you once again to all of our patrons over at patreon.com/carpoolgaming. If you want to head over there, choose the tier that's right for you. Now, Garrett plugs go on this lovely, lovely Tuesday evening.
You can follow me on Twitter at Bland Explosion, and I also read all of your messages in the Discord in the RPG Cave. I read every single one of them. You may not believe me, but I do, and I think about it for a second, and then I close my phone and continue about my day. That's how it rolls. I got a few comments for you, Ryan. Metal Slug Tactics coming out. Which is surprising.
Surprise release date, because it's literally
a week?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah. That was my pick in Fantasy Critic, and thank goodness that got a release date before the end of the year. John 32, I'm coming for you in the PSVG League. It's on. It's like I think he'll still lead out in first place because he's so far ahead. But man, I got really lucky because I had Metaphor Refantasio and Dragon Ball Sparking Zero just back to back right there. So nice. I'm coming for you. So there's that. What was I about? Oh yeah, Ryan, is it Kevesi and Agnian? Is it Agnian?
I don't. You're the Xenoblade expert. Why are you asking me?
Why would you say a Jenny? There's no like vowel between the G and the N there. I think it's Agnian. TechMike, correct us in the comments or to our faces on the Discord.
And not you, Cwagmire. Cwagmire tried to correct us already, but this is TechMike's comment. So TechMike is the one that can let us know.
Yeah. So there you go. That's it.
Cool. Well, as for me, you can always find me over on Twitter, aka X, at Ryan Turper. You also find us on X at Carpool Gaming, right here, youtube.com/Carpool Gaming. Of course, twitch.tv/Carpool Gaming Live, as well as podcast services around the globe. Don't forget about Extra Life, again, in 2 weeks, or 2 weeks, over on YouTube and Twitch. Please be excited for that. And for Garrett Bland, I'm Ryan Turfer. This has been the 159th level of the RPG Cave, and we're out.
Bye-bye.